Well, this is what happens when Greg Gard makes news in the post-game press conference. We go late. We go a little bit late as we have to type some words on the internet. The Badgers get the win over the Northern Illinois Huskies, and Greg Gard making a little bit of news, and getting a little bit soft in the post-game presser tonight. Let's break it down on Talkin Badgers. It is Talkin Badgers, powered by BadgerNotes.com. Thank those of you who are here late, just out and burning the midnight oil this evening with us. We're going to crack one as we get it going. Tonight, Wisconsin wins pretty convincingly, 97-72 over 5-point win. Maybe could have been a little bit bigger. Frankly, I think it's a little bit hard to discern whether Wisconsin was aided or harmed by the 50-plus personal fouls called when you combine the personals called on both sides of the matchup this evening. I think it's a little bit hard to tease out exactly who that benefited most. I think there's certainly a case to be made that it benefited Wisconsin more than Northern Illinois. Certainly, Northern Illinois Huskies head coach Burnson, something like that. Believe that to be the case, and I can understand that they got some quick guys, some smaller guys that can get up and down the court a little bit, and potentially would have caused some trouble for a Wisconsin team tonight. I guess we will never know. Certainly, that's a case that could be made based off of past matchups with 300-ish teams in terms of KenPom rankings when Wisconsin played UTRGV a year ago. But the stop and start nature, getting Wisconsin and Northern Illinois in a lot of set plays off of the inbound, you never gave Northern Illinois much of an opportunity to get up and down the court at a rapid pace. As overall, how many personal fouls called on either side tonight? I'm looking at 29 plus 23, 52 personals called. The only guy who got up and down the court only had technically 4 fast break points tonight. Certainly felt like it could have been or otherwise was more than that. He can get out and go. He really has a motor and put together a 25-point career high performance for one Nick Boyd this evening. And in the post-game presser, just glowingly talking about his ability to play in this Wisconsin Badgers offense and his encouragement by this coaching staff to get out and run. That, when he was playing under Brian Dutcher out at San Diego State, they controlled the tempo a little bit more. They certainly demanded as much defensively at San Diego State as Wisconsin is going to demand from him here, but he has more freedom to get out and run offensively, get a steal, get a rebound, get out and go, get out and make something happen rather than get them into a set play. Greg Gard doing a lot less getting the offense into a set play, getting the offense exactly to where maybe he might want it, but understanding and trusting his players more. And that's been a benefit to his team. And I think is a little bit of a theme coming out of the game tonight is nobody played. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 played more than 20 minutes, and one of them was not starter Austin Rapp. Starter Austin Rapp, who of course struggles with fouls in the first half. He does not appear in the final 10 minutes and 31 seconds of the first half, and Wisconsin ends up having to go to a look for just under 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 57 seconds, with Jack Robinson on the floor, which could have been worse, could have been better. Wisconsin outscored 4-2 during that. This comes in the middle of a stretch where Wisconsin misses 6 straight shots from the field. Not a like prototypical what we think of Wisconsin when Wisconsin misses 6 shots from the field stretch, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But Jack Robinson comes in. Wisconsin outscored 4-2 in that stretch. They turn the ball over twice. He is responsible for one of those turnovers, and Wisconsin, finishes the evening overall with only 6 turnovers in that first half and 9 total. So a good chunk of those turnovers coming during the time Robinson is on the floor. Greg Gard said he thought maybe he caught Robinson by surprise, that he was actually going to go out and play. You never know when foul trouble is going to lead to your name getting called in the lineup. And I think fortunately for Wisconsin, who has the ability to play for you early, and particularly in the front court where we knew there were depth questions, where we knew they were going to be challenged because they simply do not have experienced bodies in the front court. There are not many bodies on the front line of this offense who have experience playing college basketball. There are 2 of them, and only one of them with Big Ten or otherwise power conference experience playing college basketball. Austin Rapp certainly can shoot the lights out, but got himself in a little bit of foul trouble this evening. Some of that his own doing, some of that certainly from the officiating. But we saw a lot of Will Garlock, 12 and a half minutes, a lot of Alexis Bieliauskas, 15 and a half minutes, and a little stretch there from Robinson, who I think showed you he is just not, he's not a guy who's ready to play at this level right now, the 3 minutes that he showed you. And Greg Gard, for the one turnover that Jack Robinson was responsible for, he comes down gets his hands on a defensive rebound and ends up having it knocked out of his hands. Ball goes out of bounds. Greg claimed that he was fouled on that play. I found that a little bit rich. Obviously, Greg Gard found that a little bit rich because Greg Gard said, we don't come to the bench and say that. We own up for the mistakes of not holding on to the ball. And on a night where the officials were seemingly calling everything, I don't think there's an excuse to be made to say you got fouled and didn't get the call. The foul trouble of it all. And I think some of this goes into the interior defense conversation, something that Tyler Strieber is bringing up in the chat right now. Tyler Strieber saying, how are we going to defend a guy like Kaufman Wren from Purdue? I still worry about the size of our bigs and being effective. The size, I think, is I think those are 2 slightly different points, to be fair. The size of it all is one thing. Being effective is another, and certainly I think there are questions about the defensive connectivity in the front court still at this time, and by and large that comes with the fact that there's just not a lot behind. Not very fun looks very quickly. And I think now we've seen 2 different instances in which Greg Gard has tried to toy with his lineup to make up for some of the lack of front court depth. And he's tried it 2 different ways. The first was, I think it was the minute 40 that he went to a 4-guard lineup where he put John Blackwell at power forward against UW-Platteville, and they were all out of sorts, and they didn't look good, and they didn't play good, and they turned the ball over, and it was gross, and it was bad. Greg Gard did admit after the fact in that matchup that he hadn't even thrown that look at them in practice, so maybe there's a little bit of them being out of sorts because of that, but some of it is, you got to get it together. I'm going to try to adjust the camera here, so bear with me momentarily. The other side of it is we saw tonight where they go to a look with Jack Robinson at the 4, and he doesn't show you all that much. Greg Gard said all the right things, I think, aside from pointing out the turnover, that he liked Robinson's ability to come in and basically get them to halftime. That's all you could really rely on him for in that moment. And what we have seen is that neither of those two answers have proven very fruitful to this point. We have not seen the answer of just go deeper down your bench provide you much in the form of Jack Robinson, and I really don't think you want to go deeper than that. And we've not seen a 4-guard look give them a lot either. It was one of my concerns coming into the year. It remains one of my concerns. That's why I said on the show that I think Alexis Bieliauskas is perhaps the most important player on this team. And I thought that he had a pretty solid game tonight. He still, he's not one of the guys who got himself into foul trouble. But certainly still had some defensive lapses from time to time. But I think you can see his internal processing moving along. I think he's figuring out his way. And offensively, I thought he had a pretty solid game tonight. I mean, just off of the shooting numbers, I think clearly he's still trying to figure out just where everybody is supposed to be with the ball at any given time. I think he can be a little more aggressive getting to the rim. And overall, I am a little bit willing to put aside the whole foul trouble of it all. I am more encouraged by what we than I am worried about the fact that they got into foul trouble tonight. And I'll flesh that out. What it meant was Wisconsin was able to play a lot of guys and play a lot of guys big minutes, and Greg Gard was not afraid to do that. Greg Gard was not too rigid in what he was doing. Greg Gard allowed Will Garlock to play big minutes in the first half with 2 fouls, to the point where Garlock ended up with 3 fouls. And Gard said in tonight's postgame presser that Garlock's going to need to do that from time to time. And what I thought he was going to say was, we're going to need Garlock basically to go out there and be a body who's going to give us some fouls from time to time. That's not exactly what he said, but I think at its core, I think that might be true, but Greg Gard doesn't need to say it. Greg Gard won't say it because of obvious coaching reasons. But what he did say is Garlock's going to need to do that to learn what he can do and what he can get away with. And I think that's a good example of what getting into foul trouble tonight against Northern Illinois gave you, that you can take away moving forward, to where hopefully this team has a better grip on what it needs to be 2 weeks from now when it plays BYU. Second, I'm not as worried about the fact I kind of agree with the notion that not everything that was called tonight is going to be something that gets called in conference play. I think some of that is Wisconsin was at a physicality advantage. Wisconsin was able to flex that physicality advantage. And when you have that kind of muscle advantage, when you have that kind of size advantage, unless you are a player like a Zach Edey, you are just going to get fouls called against you. That's just the matter of fact. When you do not have defenders bouncing off of you as easily, you are going to get a less friendly whistle. It's why the basketball has the whole flopping conversation, right? So I'm not super worried about the fact that they got into foul trouble as often as they did this evening. This is the problem with doing this pod by myself right now. is I want to drink this really tremendous beverage. But I don't really got anybody to to take the reins for a moment. So, Strieber also says, do you think Wisconsin's inexperienced depth may cause them to play more zone? Guard hasn't been afraid to do that, unlike Bo sticking only to man. I still think zone for them is just they're still going to stick principles. That's just who they are. And my guess is if and when they go to zone, it's going to be even less often than what we saw last year, because last year was a team that had, for the most part, a lot of veteran guys with their defensive principles in the man-to-man defense already built in and learned and taken to muscle memory outside of, a John Tonje, Xavier Amos. And when you are building in way more new pieces, what is it? 3 of the 10 guys in your rotation are returners, and the rest are all new. Yeah, that's right. It's a lot harder to build in, I think, another defensive scheme for them. That would be my guess. And I'm trying to think. I think I remember seeing during the off-season, preseason, summer practices, I want to say we saw one day where they were practicing a zone, but I can't say that with absolute certainty, which I think proves the point. Just because I think it just proves that, like, if you really think you're going to go to a zone, I just don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, but Tyler gets at a point here, and the news that I said Greg Gard made in the postgame presser is something similar to the idea that Greg Gard is not so stuck in his ways, so to speak. Over the past couple of years, Greg Gard has said, in the new age of college basketball, redshirting isn't really a thing. It's not a thing in the same way that we've talked about in the past with Wisconsin's player development pipeline to redshirt folks and get them into the program as development pieces later on. Obviously, this was a little bit of a sticking point with one Gus Yalden. Forward for Wisconsin, enrolls. Looks like he's going to check in the non-con and goes back to the bench, I guess, there and then makes the decision to redshirt, and Greg Gard has to play coy with the issue basically all year. Tonight, we did not see Zach Kinziger again, and Wisconsin has cleared out its bench twice. And we have not seen Zach Kinziger either against the Campbell Fighting Camels or against the Northern Illinois Huskies. He's been, what are we talking about, the lone player to not get off the bench? Because if we go, let me make sure that we count. We got the 10 rotation pieces. And then we go Robinson, Gard, Greppy. Yep. He's been the one of the 14 who has not appeared in a game. Zach Kinziger, of course, freshman enrollee, the highest rated point guard recruit in his class in the 2025 recruiting class from the state of Wisconsin. De Pere High School standout, state champion. Shot over 36% from 3 on over 200 attempts his senior year. He is, I mean, if nothing else, he's a guy who could shoot the ball and has a little bit of experience distributing the ball as well. And shooting the ball at volume, over 200 attempts. Greg Gard was asked about the fact that he has not played in these 2 games and asked, are you redshirting? Although this is something you have gone out of your way to say that's not really something that you do as much, if at all, in college basketball anymore. And that Kinziger went to guard probably a week ago, and the two of them talked about it, and Kinziger is contemplating it. He said Kinziger wants to get his degree from Wisconsin. He wants to contribute at a high level, but he has a lot of experienced older guys in front of him in the lineup, in front of him in the rotation that, quite frankly, are older, more experienced. They had a head start, and Kinziger is still just contemplating it. I have said this over the course of the preseason, the offseason. I think I wrote this in a bit of a piece for BadgerNotes.com. He's good. He's going to be a player. They just have so many good backcourt options in front of him. So many guys who've been there, done that in front of him. And the young guys who are playing, I guess young guy who is playing in front of him in the backcourt, just Hayden Jones, does something a little bit different that really only matches kind of like the skill set on the wing in Andrew Rohde can give you without the ball handling ability, I think. Hayden Jones is just a little bit of a physical unicorn in that sense. He's real long, real a bit. And his game's just different than Kinziger, and Kinziger's game is more akin to what Boyd can bring you as a primary ball handler, what Blackwell can bring you as a primary ball handler and sometimes an outside shot. Rohde's outside shot and ball handling, but without some of the, other inside stuff, without some of the stuff on the wing. I thought Rohde had like a really nice floater that I was kind of surprised went down, but just he's got the length to make just about anything work in the lane. And so, while it sounds like Kinziger is very dedicated to the project of being at UW, Greg Gard wants to give him the opportunity to make the decision definitively. Are you going to redshirt or not? And Greg Gard said, well, he said, we haven't officially, and that really won't become official until after the season, of course, because, you don't know if somebody gets hurt in front of him and all of a sudden Zach Kinziger is thrust into the rotation, right? Well, then any plan to redshirt him goes out the window. That he doesn't appear in any games. But Gard said, right now, if you're undecided, let's not put you in until when we get to a point. And, hopefully nothing impactful here. He just has really good guards in front of him. And Gard also said one of the best things for Kinziger right now is for him to go head-to-head with Nick Boyd every day. And it was funny that he said that, actually, because it was revealing that in a lot of the practices we have seen with Kinziger, he is like primarily defending Nick Boyd. And it's not that Nick Boyd is huge. And I think Kinziger has undergone certainly some physical development over the summer, over the course of off-season workouts that I think has already made itself apparent. I think his body is certainly changing at a rapid pace. He is putting in the work. But just seeing this little bitty baby boy, basically fresh out of high school against a Nick Boyd, a graduate transfer, very old, very physically mature. It just looks very different. And him going head to head with him, just learning to have to defend that kind of speed, that level, that caliber of player day in and day out as, both primary ball handlers. I think it's going to be tremendous for his development, given he sticks around. And the way Gard's talking about Kinziger a bit amid all of this is very different than the way he talked about, other developmental guards, other developmental players. And I think some of that is just given the fact that they knew this was going to be something they had to figure out, and also knowing, all these guards in front of him there's a chance all the starting three in the backcourt are gone next year, right? If John Blackwell does not return, if John Blackwell goes to the NBA draft, and Braden Carrington also gone, right? There's a chance that of the theoretical, 6 guards in front of Kinziger in the rotation, 4 of them are gone. Am I doing that right? Yeah. But I think I am messing up the math because I was of the 7 in front of him, right? Oh man, this is brutal. Because we're talking. This is great radio, by the way. Nick Boyd, Rhodey, Blackwell is 3, Janicki, Carrington, Jones. So of the 6, 4 are gone. Yeah, because that would be Janicki and Jones return. So when it would make a good amount of sense. We're gonna go back to the Tyler Strieber comments in the chat here. Kinziger wouldn't hurt to redshirt. Then he can put on some weight too and bulk up for the next year. Yep, totally agree. I think he's already doing that. Like I said, I wish basketball would get with the times like football did with redshirt. You shouldn't lose it if you only play in a couple of games. Football lets you play a third of the season. I think you need one or the other in terms of the redshirt rule and unfettered transfer portal access. Is really how I feel about it. Like, given the world that we live in and these players cannot collectively bargain away any of their rights, like I think players should be able to do whatever the heck they want. Like, and I'm pretty radically pro player in that sense. Like, unless you have negotiated your own rights away, you should have the ability to do what you want. You should not have any anti-competitive restrictions on your ability to play. It's a labor market, and players should be able to participate in it and profit from it because that's economics. But in a world with unfettered transfer portal access and a redshirt rule that allows you to play part of a season, I think it just very clearly leads to too many instances where the rules are being manipulated, where guys play their 4 games, don't necessarily like their role, don't necessarily see their path to continued playing time at the level they like it, and shut it down for the year. And we see this in football all the time. We see this in football where guys, mysteriously get injured and are never to be seen again, or exit the program. Potter, who exit the Ohio State basketball program, continue going to school, make that a really important part of what they do, and then transfer and are punished for being a student first in student athlete. It's some of the other instances that bother me, and I think the adverse effects, the unintended incentives of having the ability to both partially play a season and then leave whenever and face, no restrictions on that movement. I think it's a pretty uniquely bad combination, frankly. Because if you are going to be able to move at any point in time and go play for any other point in time, go play for any other team, that team should at least be able to rely on that you are going to be there for that year, for that season. I don't care if a player wants to leave after that season. They can do whatever they want, but they should play that season. And if there is going to be a clock on the number of seasons they can play, that season they are with that program should count against it. If this is the world in which we live, in the world of unfettered movement, that's how I feel about it. Shirt plan is probably what's going to happen. I mean, there are only so many of these games in which he would reasonably appear, right? And unless game is out of hand, of course, right? And we're only having this conversation for the next, call it 5 weeks, 6 weeks. until the end of December, and they play the Central Michigan Chips, and they play the Milwaukee Panthers, and then this conversation's about done, unless they're just blowing teams out and they're reaching for the Italian down the bench. I think those are the big thoughts I wanted to hit on out of the game tonight. I mean, obviously, like another 28 of 37 from the free throw line, I don't even think really tells the story of just how good they were getting to the line and connecting there. Some of these free throws, right? Like a Will Garlock really ugly miss, or a Hayden Jones going 0 for 2 at the line in one trip in the first half. Like they kind of skew these numbers a little bit. Or like an Andrew Rohde missing the front end on one and not getting back. Like, how many nights is that going to happen? My guess is not. And also, given the Jones of it all, like I mentioned, he had an 0 for 2 trip to the line once, and he finished the night 5 of 8. He had an 0 for 2 trip in there, and then made 5 of 6. Seems pretty good. So I don't even think 28 of 37, shooting below 80% from the charity stripe really tells the story. Okay. I think that about does it. We'll be back talking football sometime tomorrow. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen in that game. That'll be something. That'll be something. I am looking forward to being in that post-game press conference. I'm looking forward to talking to players and asking them how they feel about the news of the week, because I just have a really hard time thinking that the story tomorrow is going to be about the game on the field. And if it is, I think that's a tremendous development for this Wisconsin Badgers football roster. That is about all I got. For Talking Badgers, I have been Kedrick Stumbris. This show is powered by BadgerNotes.com. You can find the show on the website formerly known as Twitter at Talkin Badgers, YouTube.com/@TalkinBadgers. So you can catch us live burning the midnight oil after we read some words about Zach Kinziger and a red shirt. Career high 5 points. Hayden Jones, career high. Will Garlock, career high. Alexis Bieliauskas scores his first points of his collegiate career. Nick Boyd, career high 25. Here's to you, fellas, on Wisconsin.